Hey everybody, welcome back to Sergeant's Talk TV. Big Mike here.
Jason over here.
That's right. Hey, tonight we got a good one for you. A lot of people have asked or have made a comment. Hey, I don't understand. My grandfather was a staff sergeant. Where does that fall in? My uncle was a petty officer. Where does that fall in? Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know much about the Navy pay grades, and because it's been over 24 years since I retired, and I don't know a lot about the Air Force pay grades, but I do know about the Marine Corps, and I do know about the Army, and of course, I know that Jason, you know the Marine Corps ranks, and since you were stationed with the Army for a while, you pretty much got the Army ranks down. So that's what we're going to talk about: U.S. Army and USMC promotions and pay grades. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to tell you something. I really had to go back and bone back up on this subject since it's been so long, and not so much what the name of the grade is, but how they've changed the promotion system since I retired, and it's changed. Okay.
Well, it's even changed. I mean, I know like I retired in 2015, but going through these notes and looking at that, they changed again in 2020. So I mean, it's changed since I've retired even. So I was reading through things and I'm like, oh, okay, that's new.
Yeah. Because I'm going to tell you something. Even in the Army, the PT test, the physical training test, has changed significantly. When I first came in into boot camp, we had to do an entire obstacle course. Then after you finished the obstacle course, you got in line for your push-ups. Then you got in another line for your setups. And then you got on the track, and you had to run 2 miles in combat boots. That was the initial one that I did. And then later on, they dropped the obstacle course halfway through my career. They dropped that. And then they dropped the running in boots part of the PT test, But if you went to specialty schools like airborne school, air assault school, ranger school, it was all boots until about, I'm thinking probably 1989 or something like that. They stopped wearing boots because the VA rate for foot issues and stuff like that was astronomical. Now it's so low that I broke like 17 bones in between both of my feet from jumping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they gave me 0 on my VA rating.
Wow. So, I know they changed certain things for us. Like I was kind of shocked actually when it's like the first week or two you're in boot camp. Even for us, you're in tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Because in later on, of course, you start asking the questions. Well, why are you? And a lot of it was that, and it was not only was it a VA rating type thing or a VA disability when they got out, was there were service members that were getting discharged because of those injuries.
Yeah.
Like it was ending careers or possible careers because of doing it, doing everything in boots, which yes and no, like you need to train in certain situations, right? Like, but to do regular everyday PT, like our boots weren't made for.
Well, the crew boots Worst boots they ever made in the world. You know what I mean? Because you're running with a metal strip of metal in the middle of those boots, and it was breaking people's arches. You know, so yeah. Anyway, like always, we drift off subject. But anyway, hey, let's say hello to the people in the chat. I see Joe Fix It For You. Let's see. There's Lila Newton. There's Cookie.
I'm seeing Tim and Dana Mason is in here and says that she got Tim home. And I have to say a special hello to my BFF, Stella. Hi, Stella.
There you go. Hey, there's Reverend Dream. He's in here. MT Homestead. I like that channel. That is a really good channel.
There's some fancy folks over there. They know all the big words.
Yeah, that's what we use.
Well, speaking of big words, I know there's a big fella. His name's Anson.
There you go.
He's got a little wife
He's
that bosses him around at Ivy's.
Hey, there's 3L Homestead. How y'all doing?
Juana Monique, welcome in, guys.
Yeah. There's Anna Moore. She's in here.
I was trying to see somebody had commented. Was it Anna Moore? Said something about staying awake this week because they fell asleep.
Is Anna Moore a she or a he?
It's a she. It's Robin. Spelled backwards is Anna Moore.
Okay.
So her name is Robin.
Okay. There's Tina Rock. She's in here. She said, I won't sleep this week.
That's who it was. Trina was the one talking about it. Wasn't, I guess she fell asleep. Not during our live. Luckily, she just fell asleep beforehand and missed it. So
yeah. Web's in here. Saying hello
Mike
to us.
Birch.
Hello, Mike. You said Ivy's family factotum.
See T McD says, hi, y'all. I've got company, but I have the live rolling. Have a good night.
David Moffat said, I made it to E4 before I got out. I wanted to go higher, but because I was HHC, there was no openings. Okay. Yeah. Debbie Drock's in here.
James Hall says, hey, y'all, lurking, trying to get caught up on videos. How do you do that? How do you catch
James
up?
Hall, y'all. There's Bowen at Thunderstick Homestead and Ministry.
Wow. Hello, Bowen. Daniel Kearney says, howdy from San Antonio.
All right. Cassie's Kitchen Creations is in here. Hello, Cassie.
Got Huga Homestead showed up. Well,
all right.
Hello.
And I think I made it where you started. Daniel Kearney's in here.
Bobby over at Pettigene River Homestead.
All right, Bobby. Hello, hello.
He says he's going to find out if smoked garlic is good. It sounds good.
There is Lindy Oakey and Judy Herman. And they're saying hello. There she is, Rebecca Touched by Yarn. All right. So I think we said hello.
Did you say hi to Jason Schoen?
I did not.
He says he was a non-rated fireman. Petty Officer 3, 2, 1, Chief Petty Officer, Senior Chief Petty Officer, and Master Chief Petty Officer. Got them all covered.
Chat with the chickens.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
Hey, did you watch the video I did? I'm going, I was talking about Sergeant's Talk TV on MT Homestead channel, and I said, and they have another channel, something about drinking coffee with the chicken or a chicken drinking coffee. It has something. I go. It has something to do with chickens and coffee. Go over there and check them out. Terry, I came in. Terry goes, "No, you had it all screwed up."
Well, you know, we talked about we wanted to start now that the cicadas have calmed down, and we're like, you know, we really should probably take it. It is called Coffee Chat with the Chickens, and we don't go out by the chickens anymore.
Yeah.
But then we put the goats by them, and the minute they see you, you won't hear anything on film.
Well, the only time you should never film around chickens is right after it rains, because that is the gosh awfulest smell you ever want to be around is wet chicken dirt. Oh my gosh.
We got lucky enough that there's such a hill coming off of ours that it washes it all down and just goes over the hillside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's self-cleaning. It works great.
Yeah. Our land out there is as flat as can be. And it used to be a cow pasture for like 50, 60, 70 years.
Mm.
And when you take an auger to it and you dig down 3 foot, ain't a rock, ain't nothing, and it's just black dirt all the way down.
Oof. Yeah, not here.
And I can't pack it back in because it's so rich. You know, it'll pack, but once it rains and everything, it goes straight through. And then the boards, so I always have to do it and then throw 2 bags of Quickcrete in there so it doesn't do anything. But I got to fill it like halfway up with gravel just so the stuff will harden.
Oh, really?
Not like back when I lived in Missouri. I just get a whole truckload of chat and use the chat because that's what they use to make roads. Once they get wet, it's like concrete. And it's just chat gravel that they have. They have chat strip mining areas and stuff like that, and you just order it by the tons and stuff. And once you'll see people out there.
We have such a condensed clay that, like, even when we were trying to put a couple posts in for the chicken run, like I packed it what I could, and then we got a rain like a day or 2 later, and I went out. My posts were all because that clay won't like recompact and try to. So yeah, I pretty much have to concrete everything in once I dig it out. My trench where I did water lines is still like if I drive on it just wrong, I sink.
Oh wow. There's David Kearney says U.S. Air Force E7 retired. There you go. Thank you for your service, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm trying to see if anybody else jumped in that we didn't say hi to yet.
Bobby over Betty Jean Rivers says, okay, I'll make a video of smoking chicken and garlic. There you go. I think you said that already, didn't you?
I didn't. He said he was going to talk about smoking garlic, but then add some chicken to it. I don't. Anson. Misery, Missouri, or the 3 misery. That's
Misery.
Missouri.
Yeah, I was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood I was active duty there for 2 years, and then I retired. And it wasn't because of Missouri, because I took a civilian job and I stayed there for 9 years, working there as a civilian. I'm going to tell you something. People say Lost in the Woods or Misery, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm from Arizona originally, and when you're a resident and you have to put your name in for a lottery to hunt in your own state, whereas Missouri, you just go over there, go to the Walmart, pick up tags all day long. You know what I mean? And then Fort Leonard Wood has 63,000 hunting acres on it. So
I know Fort Benning had quite a few. I don't remember what the acreage was, but it was pretty much anywhere that was a training area was blocked off as a hunting and
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it wasn't scheduled for training.
Right, right.
But the other thing is when they moved the armor school there, they mowed down 300 acres of prime hunting land. They were PO'd.
Oh, I'd imagine.
When they started dozing that place for the armor school.
Well, yeah, because you figure not only, I mean, Army and Marine, obviously all the armor went there for the schools, and every one of the buildings that we had for maintenance facilities, support facilities, training facilities, it was all brand new.
Yeah.
Like even actually, I think the area that they put us in, there used to only be maybe reserve unit. There was very little out there. And of course, typical, what does everybody do with the Marines? Hey, where's the farthest we can put them away from everybody because they can't
exactly. Yeah.
And that's pretty much the way it was out there, which we loved it. Hey, we could be out there, and they did start building more facilities, I think, for training.
Yeah.
I was seeing Robin's comment. Yes, that is Charlie, our cat, and he's always getting into something. Oh, Rainy Ridge made it in.
Hey, there they are. Okay, so hey, let's get started. Like I said, we're talking about promotions within the U.S. Army and the United States Marine Corps. Advancing through the military ranks involve demonstrating exceptional leadership skill and performance in your assigned roles. Additionally, you must meet specific time in service and time in rank requirements to be eligible for promotion. As you progress, promotions become more meaningful, signifying increased responsibility and often pay increases. And here we're going to talk about an overview of all the military enlisted ranks. Mm-hmm. Enlisted ranks. For the Army, we have 12 ranks. Okay, from Private E1 all the way up to the Sergeant Major of the Army. Those are the 12 ranks in between there. The enlisted soldiers, these service members execute tasks based on orders, and they are the backbone of the military. They also state, and I know when I was in, because that's new, because that used to be the non-commissioned officers. They were the backbone of the Army, because officers can bark out orders, but it takes the non-commissioned officers, the sergeants and stuff like that, to execute those, because the soldiers will follow them before, they follow them in battle. Okay. And usually the highest ranking person on a battlefield is probably a major that is in something like a jump TAC, which is the command center for the main tactical operations center for the general, the colonels and stuff like that. So they're probably the highest ranking officer on the battlefield, but the captain is in the mud, in the dirt with the soldiers and the non-commissioned officers. The commissioned officers, like I said, these military managers plan missions, issue orders, and assign tasks. They make up only 17% of the military personnel. Okay. So the non-commissioned officer with more tenure and expertise oversee low-ranking personnel, which is the majority of the Army, the lower enlisted soldiers. Remember that promotions tend to occur faster, earlier in your career, and the frequency slows after reaching non-commissioned officer rank, which is absolutely true.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know how the Marine Corps breaks that down. I know that you guys don't have what we would call a private E1. Isn't the first thing you have a private first class has a stripe, or is there an E1 rank in the Marine Corps?
No, there is. Okay. And typically
they're just a slick sleeve private.
Yes, and typically that changes almost right after coming out of boot camp.
Okay.
So you spend, of course you're a recruit while you're in boot camp, but then when you graduate, so everything you have now, there's certain circumstances. Some guys come out as an E2, some make E3, that type of thing. But no, they do start with an E1, but it's once you're in, as we get there later, but yeah, once you're in for 6 months, you automatically switch to E2. So
yeah, that's the same with us.
Yeah. So Lynn's got a question. Says, what's the difference of enlisted and unlisted ranks?
There's lower enlisted, which is E1, E2, E3, E4. And then there's your middle managers, if you will, which are corporal, sergeant, and staff sergeant. And then you've got your senior enlisted that starts at sergeant first class, or E7, and goes E7. And then you have your seniors. Well, let me take that back. The lower enlisted non-commissioned officer is corporal and sergeant. Then you go into staff sergeant, which are usually squad leaders, and sergeants are team leaders. Corporals can be team leaders in the Army if they don't have enough sergeants. And then you got your senior enlisted, which is E7 to E9 in the Army. And then your commissioned officers are all officers, and all officers start off as butter bars, as first lieutenants. And they call it a butter bar because it's gold. It looks like butter when it's all shined up. So that's what I call it. Okay. Promotion timelines for enlisted and officers. When considering your career in the Army, it is vital to consider the Army promotion timeline when you plan. The Army consists of 12 different enlisted ranks. These ranks break down into junior enlisted, non-commissioned officers, and senior non-commissioned officers. Also, the Army has commissioned officers, of course. The Army bases some of its promotion criteria on the service and time in pay or in grade. However, the higher up the promotion ranks, the more competitive, like I said earlier, it is for those promotions, because you got to realize something. No matter what branch you're in, you got all these lower enlisted privates and E2s, E3s, and E4s. Okay. And then somebody's got to be the squad leader. So now they like each branch or each company or whatever, they say, okay, you can only have this many sergeants. Okay. And then you can only have this many staff sergeants, because sergeants are usually team leaders. And then the squad leader, because you can break up a squad into 2 teams. And then you'll take, as a staff sergeant, you'll take, one of the teams if you go into a firefight, and then your sergeant that works for you will take the other team. And so as you go up, the number of personnel that they need starts going in and get tighter and tighter. So it's very competitive. And then you got four squads in a platoon, 4 to 5 squads in a platoon. Mm-hmm. You only need 1 E7 to be the platoon sergeant, a sergeant first class to run that. And you also have sergeant first class and staff sergeants that serve staff positions, like up at the G2s, the S3s, and stuff like that in the operations level of the battalion and stuff like that. So as you go up, there's fewer and fewer in that rank, like first sergeant and sergeant major. It gets really tight up there because that's the
kind of keeps it away from and this is the easy part about our conversation tonight, because there is so many similarities between the Marine Corps side and the Army side. They're very much similar. And that's why Mike and I are not talking about like Navy and Air Force promotions, because neither one of us were in it, and it's confusing if you weren't there to be part of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, you don't want a situation also where, and sometimes you get there, but too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'll just say Tamara Smith, her son-in-law is up for promotion to Master Guns. So that's pretty awesome. Hopefully he can get that, Tamara. Or Tamara. And then Judy Herman says, what do these E numbers all about?
The E stands for enlisted. If it's an officer rank, it starts with an O. 01, 02, 03.
And it's basically the level, so if you're enlisted, you already know that they're going to be an enlisted person. And then when it's E1 through E8, that's the level. You start at a level 1 and you go all the way up to 8 if you can make it.
Yeah. Okay.
9. Yeah.
So an E1 is the lowest rank in the Army. Same thing with the Marine Corps. E1 is the initial rank for those just coming into basic training. And you'll go in as an E1 if you have no college. If, let's say, you did 30 hours and you said, hey, college ain't for me, they take that in consideration. So you might go in an E2 or an E3 in basic. Also, enlisted soldiers, they can sign up for recruiting. Once they get out of basic and AIT, they can go back home and they can work for 6 months or whatever it is and help the recruiter go out and do face-to-faces with high school kids. Because that enlisted guy, has a lot of influence on people their same ages. You know what I mean? And so that's why they do that. And then when they come back from that, they get automatically promoted to the next pay grade ahead of.
Well, so is it automatic? Like we had that option in the Marine Corps. They called it recruiter's assistance.
Yeah.
And you went back. But the only way that you got a promotion when you went and did that was if you got, I want to say it was 3 people, 2 or 3. You had to get 2 or 3 people to sign a contract.
Well,
to enlist.
Right.
And if you got that and they went to boot camp, then you would qualify for your promotion.
Right.
But just going out to do the recruiter's assistance wasn't, at least on our side, was not guaranteed as a promotion.
Right.
Also, I did it, I think twice and never got promoted.
To promote to E2, which is the 2nd grade in the Army, which is a private second class, PV2, okay, which PV stands for private and then 2 stands for second class. You need 6 months of service or 4 months of service with advanced college or ROTC. So you can be in high school, and if you're going in, you can go and if your school's got ROTC, you take ROTC in high school, and you could come in as a E2 rather than an E1. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Back in the day, when I came in, my base pay was $397 when I came in. That's what my base pay is for an E1. Thank God, okay, for a meal card and a barracks room. Okay? And now they're making quite a lot more per month. I don't know what haven't looked at a pay scale for the Army in a long time. But yeah, they make a lot more than they used to. Then afterwards, promotion to E3 or private first class, PFC, happens after 12 months of enlistment. and at least 4 months as an E2. Okay, so the time and grade as an E2, you've got to have 4 months, which is kind of different than what I was reading with the Marine Corps. There's sometimes that a commander can supersede that and promote somebody. And we don't have that.
Yeah, they're the meritorious promotions.
Yeah.
And they can happen 2 different ways. They either do a board where they have a panel from the command, and they, like, each platoon or whatever will pick 1 or 2 of their Marines, if they even have any, that they want to put up at the company or battalion level. And I think every like battalion, or I think it actually even came from division, they would get so many quotas a year of how many they can meritoriously promote. Some of them they would just they wouldn't make those Marines go to, normally it was kind of like the corporal or sergeant boards are the ones that had to go to division, and they would stand in front of a panel of like senior enlisted, and they would ask them questions. They would look at their military record, do all that kind of stuff. But with a lower, like E2, E3, sometimes E4, they'll do a local battalion level one. And if they have enough, then they can get a meritorious promotion. And there's some other things that commanders have. They have the ability, what they're talking about is they have the ability to be like, that Marine's promoted. Like, here we go. And you just go, okay, I guess we're just getting his uniforms changed.
So, Jason, Lindy Oki asked, how do they become a U.S. Marine officer, which they're basically all the same to be an officer.
Right. Yeah. Every branch is pretty much the same. If you want to be an officer, you have to have a college degree. Like, you have to go to college. I want to say somewhere, don't quote me on this, guys. Somewhere I'd heard was, I think it's pretty much everybody, isn't it? You got to have at least an associate's. I don't think there's a benefit for like having a bachelor's, but they have to at least have an associate.
I think you have to have an associate, but you have to, before you make captain, you have to have a 4-year degree.
Yeah, and maybe that's where I'd heard it was like you can get in with the associates, but then in order to get like, I think 03 or above, they have to have finished the 4-year degree.
Now, a captain in the I guess the Marine Corps and a captain in the Army are the same. But if you talk about a captain in the Navy, not so much, because a captain in the Navy is what we call a full bird colonel. And he's like the commander of a ship and stuff like that. I mean, they do have in the Navy, it's, what is it? Commanders. Yeah, commanders are lieutenant colonels, captains are colonels, and lieutenant commander is a major. So theirs is all, but theirs comes all the way back from the British Navy and all this other stuff. And I don't know the whole ins and outs of that, but another way you can become an officer is the Green to Gold program. The Army has. I don't know if the Marine Corps has that, where you can get out and do a scholarship to go from green, which is a ground pounder private, and you can go gold, which gold is the butter bars. So it's called the Green to Gold program, and you can go and do college and then come back in as an officer, or you can go to Officer Candidate School, OCS. And our OCS is at Fort Benning, Georgia. And it is like a officer's freaking boot camp nightmare. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple different variants on the Marine Corps side that you can go from enlisted to officer. Plus, we have the Chief Warrant Officer option, or, they start off as a warrant officer and then become Chief Warrant Officer. And that one doesn't require a college degree. But in order to go to be a full commissioned, then yes, they either have to kind of not really get out because they stay active duty, but they're going to stay active duty and then go to the MECEP program, where it basically converts them from enlisted. So they're enlisted, they're reporting to, typically it's that colleges like ROTC, or if there's a reserve center, they're still doing that, but they're going to college full time. And then that makes them a full commissioned. But yeah. I didn't want to do any of those. So I know guys that did it and they did great. There's Randall Gypsy Trails.
Yeah, there's ensign, which is a butter bar. Then there's a lieutenant, JG, junior grade. Then there's the lieutenant. Then there's lieutenant commander, commander, captain, rear admiral. Rear admiral. Isn't it a what is our? Is that rear admiral? That's a 1-star. Is that correct?
I'm gonna guess so. I would be wrong to tell you. Like looking at those, I'm like, that was
what is a rear admiral U? And then there's an admiral. That doesn't sound right. And then there's an admiral. Then there's a vice admiral. I thought a vice admiral was equivalent to a 3-star that we call a lieutenant general. Even
so he's saying lower half and upper half.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Rear admiral, lower and upper.
Oh, okay. See, that's why it's confusing.
And Anson's saying the same thing. Rear admiral, lower half, then rear admiral, upper half. See, they just got to make things complicated. That's how I'm glad I never became an officer.
Yeah. That's weird. Okay, so let's get back to the enlisted. Lastly, to continue on to specialist, E4 or corporal, which is the same pay grade, but one is a specialty, someone who specializes in their MOS by that time. And then the corporal is the leadership position as an E4. Okay. You will need to have 2 years of service and at least 6 months time and grade as a private first class in order to be promoted to E4. So that's how it breaks down for the time and service, time and grade for the Army enlisted, lower enlisted, or the junior enlisted. All right. All right. So then, like I said, on top of that, there's Corporal E4 in the Army. The lowest non-commissioned officer rank is a corporal. Also, you might notice that the corporal designation for the corporal is the same as the specialist in the Army, like I said before. One's just a leadership position, and the other one is just perfected his job or MOS that he does on a daily basis. So, yeah. However, even though these two have the same pay rank, they have different responsibilities, which is true. A specialist is known for having technical expertise and knowledge. However, the corporal, despite being the lowest rank of the non-commissioned officer, is more about leadership. He still has to be a master of his craft, but they see leadership potential in that corporal that they want to promote. Your commander can promote you to corporal if you have 26 months in service, along with 6 months time and grade with a waiver. Okay.
I have a quick question.
You also need a security clearance by us to be a corporal. So you have to qualify with a security clearance for it. Because of briefings you have to go to.
Yeah, and I think in the Marine Corps it was almost like it depended on your MOS is what security clearance you needed.
Yeah.
And then, but I think once you hit staff sergeant,
You've got to have it.
You've got to have it.
Yeah.
So with this is a question, and I've had it, and I've gotten a couple answers on this, so it's just kind of like curious as to so with the E4 rank, because that is something like the Marine Corps only has one E4 rank. You're a corporal or you're
Is
not.
it corporal or lance corporal?
So lance corporal is our E3 rank.
Okay.
And then corporal that's when you become, an NCO, and that's your only option.
Yeah.
Do the soldiers have a choice of, do they get to choose, or how is it chosen that they go specialist or corporal? And do they have the option?
No, the corporal, okay, from E5, E6, you have to go in front of a promotion board if you want to move up to those ranks. And that's a panel of non-commissioned officers to include your sergeant major and first sergeant and all that. That's set on a board. It's like a murder board, and they just keep hammering you with questions. Then they go out and you have to do DNC, and you get graded on it. And that's drill and ceremony. And they grade you on all that stuff. And they could throw in, like when I did it, they threw in a TA-50 layout. And they give you a layout for the parking lot or inside of a building or whatever. And you have to lay all your TA-50s, all your combat gear, and you have to lay it out in a certain way, fold it a certain way, and get ready for an inspection. They can do that. But for corporal, your commander can promote you. He can say, hey, I see leadership potential. So instead of you becoming a specialist, I'm going to promote you to corporal. Or what I've seen mostly is you get automatically promoted to specialist, which is a specialist in your field on the job you actually do every day. And then they look at you as you're doing that job, and they said, hey, that guy's got leadership potential. We're going to promote him to corporal because we have an opening for it. And that's how they do it.
Okay. Yeah, because that was
you have to be recommended for non-commissioned officer ranks. So yeah. Let's see. Let's. So what is it with the Lance Corporal is the only corporal rank you said, right?
No. So, and
or is that
makes sense.
Is that like the junior corporal?
Yeah. So when like, I guess this will be easiest. We'll talk about both. Like, instead of doing one and then going back to the other, let's just do the comparison. It probably makes the most sense, right? We're just figuring this out, folks. We're new here. Don't blame us. So kind of like how the Army has an E1, so does the Marine Corps. It's a private. Right. You basically, as soon as you come out of boot camp after 6 months, you get promoted to E2. So our E2 is called Private First Class.
Okay. Where ours is E3.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you go from private at E1, PFC or Private First Class, and then you need that's 6 months after time in service and time in grade. So basically, because you come in as an E1, so at 6 months you're automatically going to make E2 unless you mess up that early. And then you go to an E3. So that's where I know there's a big difference between the Army and the Marine Corps. Our E3 is a Lance Corporal. Still a junior enlisted, not an NCO, not some of them can be put into leadership positions because they're typically, you need to be in at least 9 months, have 9 months time in service and 8 months of time in grade. So you've got to be a PFC for 8 months, and then you'll automatically get, pending you didn't get any trouble, you'll get E3 via Lance Corporal. They're automatic, not really any quotas because they're such junior Marines. And it does seem to have a high attrition rate because kind of what we were talking about earlier, where the PT, the running in boots, doing those types of things, definitely causes some medical issues. So you tend to lose more of those lower ranks. Plus, they're the ones doing all the heavy labor and the heavy lifting. They're more likely to and prone to injuries and stuff like that. But those are the 3 ranks that unit commanders can waive the time and grade and time and service to promote those first 3 ranks. So if they see a Marine and he did a board, which is typically how they do it, but even if they put a Marine in a billet, they put him in a job that he wasn't doing and he did great at it, and they're like, you know what, this guy's awesome. He's not doing what he was trained to do, but now he's doing something else. Promote him.
Yeah.
And then, so that's our junior, and then we don't get into what's considered an NCO until we hit the corporal, which is E4. And that falls 12 months time and grade. So you typically, unless you get what they call the meritorious promotion, you're going to be a lance corporal in E3 for a year before you advance to corporal. But there are what they call the professional military education courses are required,
right,
in order to become an NCO. You've got to take some additional courses and or sometimes go to a like a resident course. We had corporal's course.
Yeah.
So there was 2 options. There was Marines that were lance corporals that were eligible for corporal that could get sent to it. But typically what you've seen was corporals that had just got promoted. They send them to corporal's course. And it's a resident school that they go to for it's several weeks. And they basically teach you how to be an NCO. Like, what does that mean? Right. You now just went from this junior enlisted worker bee to a leader. How does that work? And they teach you all those types of things.
Yeah. So I was looking at Ivy's thing here about the 5-star admirals. 5 stars used to be only during times of war. Like Nimitz was a 5-star at one time. He was admiral of the fleets. And then MacArthur was the theater in charge. He was general of the armies. So everybody that was allies and all that stuff, Eisenhower.
I actually just watched a documentary the other night about MacArthur, so it's funny that gets brought up.
Blackjack Pershing, when they went to Cuba and all that stuff, and because he was friends with Teddy Roosevelt during the San Juan Hill battles and all that kind of stuff. So,
he'd actually gotten out, and I guess I didn't know that he had gotten out, like retired, and then they end up pulling him back in, and that's when he went to be the 4 and the 5-star or the 4-star.
Right.
But in that documentary, there was a fun fact that there's only one 6-star general ever, and it'll never happen again. And it happened, posthumously, or however you say that word, right after they had died. Only one 6-star general ever, and they said it's never going to be repeated. And I'm trying to remember who it was that awarded it to him, because they wanted him to never be outranked, and that was George Washington.
Yeah,
was the only one to actually, but he never, wore it because it didn't happen till afterwards.
I think if somebody Googles, Jesse, if you Google names of all the 6-star generals or 5-star generals, and if you can post that, and the reason they don't do that anymore is because now the senior person is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and all the other services have 4-star generals that is part of his staff. Everybody works for that person, every branch of the service. Everybody works for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he's a 4-star general anyway. So, so when we get into the sergeants, that is advancement to sergeant is very competitive. Okay, because you only got so many. In every platoon, there's only 4. You could have, or it could be 5, but you have 40 to 50 soldiers in a platoon. So each squad has a staff sergeant, and they have the assistant squad leader is an E5. So that's how they break those down. And it just depends on the company and their mission, what they do, if it's armor, if it's cavalry, if whatever it is. So Specialist E4 must first be promoted to corporal before becoming eligible for the rank of sergeant. And that was not the case when I was in the military. So that has changed, if that statement is true. To make, and I got this part off military.com. So I'm pretty sure it's up to date now. To make corporal, specialists must compete or complete the basic leadership course and be recommended for advancement by a promotion board. Corporals hoping for the promotion to E5 must meet the following expectations: civilian education level, completion of primary leadership course, PLDC, 8 months of time and grade, 36 months time in service, and the unit commander's recommendation. Okay. So that's what you have to do to make E5 in the Army. What say you, Marine?
I was trying to type an answer, Shiloh Acres. So yeah, for Sergeant E5, so that's going to be our in the Marine Corps, that is our second level of non-commissioned officer. You need 48 months of time in service, and that's actually changed as of January 2020, because you didn't really need that 48 months. So basically, that would mean, being on active duty, that's the day that you would be getting, separating. Well, actually, it would technically be the day after, because you separate. How'd that work?
Right.
Your EAS, I think, was one day after the day that you left for boot camp. So maybe, yeah. So like you could get promoted, but because you're not, you don't have enough time on your contract, you couldn't accept the promotion. Now, when I was in, that 48-month time in service was not a requirement, because that was actually one of the things. It was very common to see sergeants within the first 4 years. And I was one of those. I'd gotten it, I think, 6 months shy of my 4-year mark. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got there, like I'm fast tracking on promotion. And once again, the reasoning behind why, and honestly, I don't argue with this fact, is to ensure the Marines have time to improve their expertise in their rank. Because there was nothing worse than watching a guy that got fast tracked, especially into the NCO ranks, that he didn't know his job. He never did. Like, if they go off to do a special duty or did a special assignment, or maybe they, were able to pass a board, but now you've got a guy that made E5 in 3 years and has no idea what he's doing. Like, he doesn't even want to be a Marine, yet alone, lead Marines. And so I'm pleased and accept the fact that is something that needs to be incorporated, because kind of what we talked before was they could waive time in service based on time and grade. And so if a Marine got a meritorious promotion, well, then that could make him eligible for that next rank sooner than what he really should have. So them being able to make the time in service and time and grade, a mandatory thing, is a very positive, because you got to think that even in 4 years, most of these guys are still not even old enough to drink legally. Like,
exactly.
I was one of them. I joined in 17, turned 18 in boot camp, and I technically would, if I would have gotten out my first 4 years, I still wasn't 21 years old.
Yeah.
And I did an entire contract, and so you're looking at guys that they've been in for 4 years, but they're 20, 21, 22. But yeah. And then sergeant, and forgive me because it's been a hot minute since I've been in. Corporal, I don't think Corporal had anything other than the time and grade. Sergeant, you actually have to have what we call a cutting score. So you don't go in front of a board, you don't do anything like that. But the Marine Corps, because they want to limit how many in each rank are there, they will put out a score. And it's like 8,000. You have to do all these PME. You have to do these extra educations, plus score high on your PT test, score high at the rifle range. Like, there's all these factors that go in to give you that score. And if you're at 5,000 and they say, hey, the only ones we're promoting are at 8,000 and above, now you're waiting until your score, and it'll automatically go higher like every month, just for the amount of time you served. But then you've got to look at, how do I increase my PFT, or how do I go to the rifle range and shoot higher? So there was a score that you had to reach it. They're not automatic at that level. Reasons why Navy leadership was more tainted compared to our Army. It could be E5 or E6, but I was given a leadership role until you made E7.
Oh, really?
That's
the leadership role, is the E7s?
Not. I think he's talking about E7, and which we had seen some of that in the Marine Corps, but I think the way the Navy's designed is they're basically all the way up till, like, they're not technically in a leadership role till they're in E7.
In the Army, we couldn't survive that. You know what I mean?
Well, and that was us. Ours was unit based, right? You're considered a leader at E4, once you're a corporal. But I was part of a couple different units that, unless you were an E7, it didn't matter what leadership role you were in, they weren't going to listen to you.
Right.
And it made things difficult, because when you go to another unit and you actually get, like, you get treated and respected by, your rank, because you know what you're talking about, you're doing it. And then you go back to this old unit that you were in before, and now you're promoted, and they want to still treat you like you might as well be a private until you're an E7. Like, because that's how, and it's that leadership team that was there. And, well, kind of going on a tangent, it's probably why I retired as an E6. Because those types of things didn't go over well for me. And, the Marine Corps promoted me to be an NCO and a staff NCO, and then you're going to tell me, well, that doesn't matter, you're not an E7. Okay.
Yeah.
Stand by. I'm going to have fun with you.
The Army could not survive or fight on the ground without the leadership structure they have, because there's so many of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can understand that when you're on ship and you've got, like, whatever division or whatever section, and, like, if you're in the, making parts for the boat, and you're a machinist, and you got all the machinists together and all that. When you go into the Army and you go into combat, you're all over the freaking battlefield, you know, and you've got to be somewhere like that's why we have team leaders, fire team leaders, assistant squad leaders, squad leader, platoon sergeant, yada, yada, yada. And of course, that's where the butter bars come in. And every time I've had a butter bar, and I had a lot of them through my time, it's great. They come in, like I've had West Point graduates, and it says, hey, the manual says this and that. You might as well leave that back in your footlocker in the barracks, because that crap don't work here. And it's just, we couldn't survive that way. The leadership starts at E7. There's no way.
Yeah.
Then how do you prepare somebody for the E7 rank if what
and
they
then
got for their responsibility means absolutely crap?
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure
that's where the failure. That
I don't think
I
it's
think that's where the failure in the leadership. You know, at least as I experienced it in the Marine Corps, and I seen it, you know, in other sides also, was when you're so micromanaged, and that was, you know, some of our problems, you know, when you would move from one unit to another. I had more control of more Marines and what I could do as a sergeant in E5 when I was in California at the unit there than I did as an E6 staff sergeant at the unit I went back to in North Carolina. Like,
right.
They were just so micromanaged, and the upper echelon leadership, the senior enlisted mainly, were so do it my way or the highway. They wanted to, they had to like hold that torch because they were afraid to hand it. Like, if they gave somebody else that knowledge, then maybe they could be replaced.
Right.
And in our numbers, I think how the Marine Corps was able to get away with it was our numbers are significantly less, right? The overall population. You know, you're looking at, even I think at the largest, the Marine Corps was only at 220,000. And I know they're downsizing now. I don't know what when I retired, that's part of why I got to retire early, was they were trying to get back down to like 150 or less. And I want to say that number might even be less now, probably around the 120 to 130 range. And that's total Marine Corps wide, everybody.
Yeah.
And
well, I know that the Marine Corps are the only ones that made their recruitment number, and they made it by 2.
Right.
And the Army missed it by like 18,000.
Yeah.
And I don't think right now, I think they've realized with what they've got, they can't fight on 2 fronts. You know, because remember, years ago, the Army went from 12 divisions down to 10 divisions. And we cut ourselves in the foot doing that. But that was a certain president decided that. And
well, like we were supposed
to fight on three combat fields. Yeah. And now we can't even fight on 2.
Well, the Marine Corps got rid of my MOS. They don't even have tanks anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, like,
are they all Bradleys now?
No, the Marine Corps never had Bradleys.
Really?
We had, so our closest equivalent would have been the LAVs.
Okay.
The light armor vehicles. Those are a really close comparison to the Bradley, but the Marine Corps never had Bradleys. That was an Army specific, I guess. But we had the LAVs, we had the Amtraks. So those were the you know, and then, you know, the tank armor. Those were the 3 like kind of bigger, you know, beyond air wing type stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it was, well, just a few years ago, I guess I had seen, because I still had guys that were in tanks, you know, that I knew that I was buddies with, and either some of them retired because they were at that level, or they actually had to like change MOSs.
Yeah, I think in the Army we have 2 different tank structures. We have tank heavy and tank light. and then the tank light has majority of Bradleys,
Mm-hmm.
and then tank heavy has majority of tanks in there. So it depends on what they're using them for, how the company's structured and stuff like that, as far as how they break that down. Hey, real quick, for staff sergeant, worked closely with the sergeant, development of soldiers in their sections. Candidates for staff sergeant must meet the following requirements to be eligible for promotion. They must have civilian education, a completion of primary leadership and development course, 10 months time and grade, 84 months time in service, and unit commander's recommendation. Also for staff sergeant, it used to be, I don't see it on there, they had to be finished their basic non-commissioned officer is BNOC. Okay, you have primary leadership and basic leadership. Then for E7, you have to have the advanced ANOC, non-commissioned officers course. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 leadership schools before you make E7 that you have to complete those courses in leadership. I know my ANOC was 13 weeks long, pure leadership for that. Promotion timeline, the senior ranks, which is sergeant first class, master sergeant, and first sergeant. Master sergeant and first sergeant share the same E grade, which is E8. That's what I was. But they have to have different roles and responsibility. If you're a master sergeant in the Army, that means you're working in non-leadership role. Okay. If you're a first sergeant, you have a company, and each company has one. Usually the master sergeant is like the master sergeant of the S3, the operation battalion headquarters, or up at division level or brigade level. And then first sergeant is a leadership role in the companies. Master sergeant and first sergeant, I already said that. They have been changed on how military promotion to senior NCOs go. Let's see. For E8, promotion for E8 through E9 are dependent on command level assessments. So it could change, it could increase. That factor in leadership skills, communications, ability, feedback from peers and subordinate, and psychology, evaluations, and physical fitness. For promotion from E7 to E8, the service member must have completed 36 months time in grade and 12 years time in service. When I was in, my promotion from E7 to E8 I was an E7 shorter than any rank I had in the military because I got promoted in the secondary zone, not in the primary zone. So I got promoted below the zone. Okay.
Oh, no.
When I got promoted, that was my only rank that I did. But the problem was that they wanted to ship me to Korea. And when I got promoted, I was going through a divorce. And so I turned down the assignment. So you know what happens when you turn down an assignment. So I walked my paperwork through and I retired from the Army.
Yeah.
In 17 days.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to do well. And I guess back then, kind of the difference of like when you retired and when I did was, there's mandatory classes and things that you have to do now to retire, as to where retiring and ending your contract was almost no different back then.
Yeah.
As to what the requirements were, because they weren't offering any services or information or nothing like that. So it was just hey, go ahead and enjoy your civilian life. Learn how to do that again.
Yeah. No. Oh. Yeah.
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 And so they're
good.
Oh, I was just going to go on to on the Marine side. It's not a lot different than what the Army side is. I think the biggest difference, so going from the E5 to E6, so now once you are going to go into the E6 rank, that's where you start your staff non-commissioned officer. And from there, the E6 to E9 are staff non-commissioned officers. They are your senior enlisted duty experts, the ones that are basically in charge of everything that happens. They're telling all the E5 and belows exactly how to do it and when to do it.
Right.
The big thing for us is at Staff Sergeant, they do a board, a promotion board every year up at Headquarters Marine Corps. And in order for you to get promoted, you have to be selected on that board. So you've got to meet the same requirements for Staff Sergeant. You need 60 months, so you have to have been in for 5 years, and 36 months time and grade as a sergeant to be able to even be eligible for Staff Sergeant. And then the promotion board are the ones, and it's people that have never met you. They don't see you. They're literally looking at a folder going, yep. Nope, I don't like that guy. Okay, he's okay. We'll look at him later. Nope, don't. Like, they have a photo of you that was taken, specific for the promotion board, and they have your stats and whatever they're looking for. And it is a crap shoot, Russian roulette. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. Like, they say, oh, there's these criteria, but they're looking at thousands of records to be able to, so it's whoever that individual is that looks at yours to decide. And it's a very difficult process. So so it says the Marines changed to time and service and time and grade for non-commissioned officers in January to once again increase. So they did increase the time and grade and time and service, so that the experience levels were there, and it forces Marines to re-enlist to achieve certain ranks. And the one kicker that a lot of people don't, I guess, know, like, they'll get close to the end and all of a sudden they're about to pin on. They're like, "Ooh, I'm eligible for Staff Sergeant. Sweet, I'm going to have it. And then I'm going to get out in 6 months." Oh, no, you're not. If you want to pin it on, you have to have at least 24 months left on your contract. To accept any one of those from E6 to E9. And there's been guys that have been, they wanted out. They're like, nope, I'm going to retire. Especially when you get into more of you see it a lot with more of the E89. They'll deny that promotion so they can just retire. They're like, no, I don't want to pick up Mass Sergeant or First Sergeant. Like, I just want to retire. Not very seldom, but I think I'd seen it twice in the whole time that I'd been in. And so then we go into what is called a gunnery sergeant. And I know Anson was talking about this earlier, was like, it was so confusing as to, what do you call a gunnery sergeant? Well, if you don't know him, you call him gunnery sergeant. But typically, if he's in your unit and he says it's okay, then hey Gunny, how's it going? But don't walk up to an E7, a gunnery sergeant, and just call him Gunny right off the bat, because that typically doesn't end well. But gunnery sergeant promotion is just like the staff sergeant. It goes to a board, and the only difference is now they have to have a time and service requirement of 6 years. There is no, I don't even think there was before a time and grade. Maybe it's a year. I can't say specific, and I don't have it on the notes for time and grade. And then for our E8, it switches also. Mass Sergeant, First Sergeant, basic same concept as the Army side. Mass Sergeant stays in the actual field of that technical field, that job field. First Sergeants, they get a command, but they go all admin. that's kind of our easy way of deciphering it. From my mechanic side was, hey, Master Sergeant gets to stay with the tanks and do this. First Sergeant goes and pushes paper somewhere.
Yeah, he's in charge of beans and bullets.
Right.
Yeah.
And you for the Marine Corps side, you make that decision once you become a gunnery sergeant. You've got your fit reps, which I know we didn't talk about evaluations tonight, and that's a whole nother probably show on that deal.
Yeah.
But you have to put a designator on that fit rep, that evaluation, as to which route do you want to go for promotion to E8. Do you want to go Master Sergeant or do you want to go First Sergeant? Right. And most times, I think maybe less than a handful of guys that I personally know, anybody that put their designator got it. There was maybe a handful of times that guys were like, well, I want to be a Master Sergeant, but they didn't have any promotions, so they made them a First Sergeant. Which then, depending on which E8 route you go, makes the differences to which E9 route you go. Because we have it, the E9 rank is a Master Gunnery Sergeant, a Sergeant Major, or Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, which you have to be selected by the Commandant to be Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. There's no other way of doing that. You are a by name request chosen by who the Commandant, who's our boss of all the Marines. So the Master Gunnery Sergeant E9 would be the promotion if you took the Master Sergeant route, and basically same responsibilities, just at a higher level, lot bigger shop. And then the Sergeant Major would be if you took the First Sergeant route, but instead of being a First Sergeant at say company level, now you're going Sergeant Major, so you're going to be battalion, your battalion level and above. And what did they put on here? Yeah. Promotion to Master Gunnery Sergeant includes 3 years as an E8 and 10 years time in service. Sergeant Major is a rank in military billet that serves as a senior enlisted Marine and considered a unit commander's advisor. And then Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps selected by the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And that, I think there is a unit advisor. So I know on the Marine Corps side, basically once you become a staff sergeant, the staff sergeants are the ones typically training the lieutenants on what their job is in the Marine Corps and in that unit. They but you also can be the advisor for your company commander, but typically that's where your First Sergeant and Sergeant Major handle the unit commanders advising.
Yeah, I think that for us for the E8s, it depends on what assignment you're given. So you could be a First Sergeant in a company, and then all of a sudden they say, hey, you just came down on orders and you've got to go to wherever, right? The schoolhouse. Let's say you're an engineer, and now you're going from there and you're going to be a senior instructor at the engineer school at Fort Leonard Wood. Well, they take your diamond and you become a Master Sergeant, okay? And then after that, you could all of a sudden they say, all right, we're sending you over to Korea, and you're going to be First Sergeant of a engineer company over there, second engineers, whatever. And then you get your diamond back. So it flip-flops. Where it doesn't flip-flop is when you get promoted to E9, which is Sergeant Major, you can be a Staff Sergeant Major, and that's just a star in the middle of your 3 up, 3 down. Or you can become a Command Sergeant Major on the Command Sergeant Major, which is a star with a reef around it, which signifies command. Okay. Mm-hmm. You don't jump like you did in the Master Sergeant, First Sergeant roles. You can't jump either or. But usually when you're first sergeant, they try to give you, because everybody wants a leadership role as an E8, and those are fought after. So usually when you get one, like a company commander only gets one command, and they don't see command again until they're a lieutenant colonel as a battalion commander. That's the next time they see a command slot. And so, yeah, it's kind of different, but it's for the Marine Corps and the Army, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's subtle differences and stuff like that. And again, we don't know what the Air Force does because we weren't in there, but thanks to the Navy over here telling us and letting the cat out the bag on how they do things. It's kind of different, I mean, I couldn't see myself, all of a sudden you have an opportunity to jump from one branch to the other because we get in the Army, we get a lot of Navy people, we get a lot of Marines. Very rarely do you see an Air Force person come over from going to combat and living in a hotel like Grumpy Grandpa and deciding, hey, I don't want that life no more. I'd rather sleep in the mud and the rain. That's what I would do.
Nobody gets a room in the Hilton and says, no, I want the Motel 6 instead.
Yeah, you don't do that.
No.
So anyway, and we're playing. We love our brothers and sisters from the Air Force, but sometimes you just gotta make fun of them because I wish I joined the Air Force.
Oh, and it was one of those things that I purposely didn't.
Well, no, you had a reason why you wanted to be a Marine,
right? And so like knowing that was my reason and justification to go, like, and I purposefully avoided the Air Force. Like I had family that was in that, and I'm like, nope, I want nothing to do with that whatsoever. Of course, after I was in the Marine Corps for a little while, I was like, the Air Force ain't looking so bad. That's pretty comfy living right over there.
Oh yeah. See, I joined the Army just on a whim.
Right. And that's the fun part. And with us talking about promotions tonight, like it had reminded me, like I did, and I know I'd seen somebody had asked earlier about, do we agree with somebody retiring at 17 years or 16 years, retirement being at 16. So honestly, I have to agree with it, right? Because I retired at 17, probably under the same program.
Yeah.
Mine was more of the Marine Corps was downsizing and I wasn't going to get promoted.
Yeah.
But going back to where I said earlier, I made E5. I was a sergeant in under 4 years. I made staff sergeant in under 8. And so I spent literally over, I think it was, how did I figure it out? 8 or 9 months more than half. So if you took my 17 years, cut it in half, over half of that, I was a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
Like I should have easily retired as an E8. Like there was no reason at the time that I went through, but because of kind of what we talked about tonight with the promotion boards and how they work, and your fit reps of how they're written and that kind of stuff will make a real difference is to how you're promoted. Like your upper level command has a lot of say of what you do or don't do. Even after you leave that command, and they still find a way to influence. So
yeah. So you call them fit reps?
For us, they're called fitness reports. I know you guys call them something different, and I think
NCOERs.
Yeah.
Non-commissioned officer evaluation reports.
Yeah. But it I mean, I think that, like, and I'm almost certain, like, even at the retirement, because even in mine at 17 years, I did take a reduced retirement pay for that.
Yeah.
Because I missed 3 years, so I'm not getting the full pay on retirement as if I would have done my 20 years. But my situation, I wouldn't have been able to do the 20 years anyways, because they would have still, if I didn't volunteer, they were voluntold me, and I was still retiring that year. So I bought myself an extra 8 months to prepare for retirement, and keep collecting that active duty paycheck.
Yeah. Let me write this real quick. All right. Okay, good. All right. So, guys, I think we covered everything. We could go on for another hour just talking and stuff like that. Hey, so one of the things I wanted to tell you is next week, we're going to give you 10 ways that you can spot a veteran or military service member. And that's all I'm going to tell you. There's subtle things that all military people do or have or whatever that you can say, wait a minute, I remember that. He must be a service member. And if you just know 10 things to pick one out of the crowd, we're going to tell you about it next week. So hope you guys join us. It should be fun. And I bet you a lot of you all that served in the military are going to go, hey, they're right. So anyway, guys, I'm glad you guys came in here. I absolutely look forward to Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But Tuesdays, I get to talk about what I love the most throughout my life and things like that. So, and we just want to share that with you. So you will have an understanding of how the military actually runs and stuff like that and changes in it and how it changes you as a person. So guys, hey, be kind to one another, help somebody in need, and always think of that. All right. And that's our mission right here. And to interact with our brothers and sisters and their family members.
And I think that right there, the family members, I mean, being able to have the conversation with other vets, seeing and reading and hearing their stories and what the experiences they went through, because no matter what branch we were in, we all share that common bond that we served.
Exactly.
But then the great part is, I know that there's people that are watching this that you didn't serve, and that's okay. But you have family, and I've been seeing it through the chat tonight and in chats and other lives and stuff, is you guys have questions. You're like, well, my great uncle always told me this, or my dad always told me this, but I never understood it. And so for us to be able to provide you a little bit of that information or a little more confirmation or understanding, hey, like tonight is, they said he was a sergeant, well, what does that mean? Because you watch any movie out there, and right, all the Army, every rank in the Army from, E1 to E12 and all the movies is, hey, Sarge, what's up, Sarge? So, but to understand that, hey, that's not a real thing. Like, we're not going to run around doing that, but what each one means and what the significance and I think for us, I mean, we're proud that we were able to make the rank that we made. But then it allows you guys, now that you're watching this, be proud of that service member of whatever rank they made. Because it wasn't easy no matter what. Like, even the automatic ranks, that's not easy because you're young and you're unleashed for the first time from your parents and anybody else that's going to hold you to accountable, and you get to run wild and free. And there's a lot of guys that even the easy ranks are not easy to get.
And there's probably parents out there saying, before their son or daughter or whatever joined the military, they were probably thinking, some of them, heck, my kid couldn't lead himself out of a wet paper bag. And now you go through boot camp and you go into your permanent duty station, and then they see that transformation in your kid. And this, hopefully, you can have, if you have somebody in the military, a son, a grandson, or whatever, hopefully through the videos that we bring out, you have a way you can understand where they're coming from, and that's the whole purpose of it all. So guys, man, I hate for this to end, but we got to. People generally don't watch a video or a live stream after the fact that goes an hour and a half, 2 hours long.
Yeah.
They might go in there and check out a little bit of it, but it's hard to find an hour and a half to sit down.
Well, yeah. And we've said it multiple times. And even when when we're not even up on the live, like we're talking beforehand or we're talking afterwards, it's hard to stop talking vet talk. Like it's,
or get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you like the content and stuff, we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button before you leave out of here tonight. And tell a friend about us. Share us out on your community tab so we can get more and more veterans or family members and stuff like that. Hey, and Tim, on his ramblings, finally got his appointment in with the VA.
Nice.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I need to call him tomorrow. I hadn't talked to him in a little while, and I see how that's going. So glad that he finally got in there. And guys, always come back. We've got other videos that we've played before too. If you know a vet that does not have themselves signed up with a VA, get them there. There's resources. Get them there. Doesn't matter how long they served, and they can get their paperwork. Get them there.
Because they just passed something where if you served, you get a certain rating and you can use the VA for your health care. But some of them have, like Tim said, they have like a copay with it, depending on what tier you are with the VA.
Yeah, so I didn't totally understand his full version of the medical that he has because one, it wasn't until recently that I realized that he didn't retire. I thought he did. Just assumed, I guess, but and it definitely comes in and it's what I had talked to him about was, so I'm on, I don't even know what they call it anymore. I know it is TRICARE standard, whatever that means for the retirees. Maybe it's changed its name because they were doing that for a while. But I didn't have an annual premium, and now I have to pay an annual premium, which isn't much. But then I'm supposed to have a copay every time I go to the doctor, outside of the VA clinic. But 9 times out of 10, I never, unless it's a major surgical procedure, I don't see any of that copay. They won't charge me for it. They're like, nah, you're the doctor's office will just waive it off. So it's well worth getting in there, even if it just saves a few dollars.
All right, guys. Hey, love you. God bless everybody. And we'll see you next week, 8 o'clock Central Time, for our next one. We're going to be talking about 10 ways you can identify a veteran or a service member. 10. All right, guys. We love you. And we'll see you next week.
Bye now. Which way did he